also, this bishop on d3 may be attacked by knight from e5. An f4 move is the great improvement. Now, what does white want? White wants to go bishop g4, and you see, put more pressure on black's position. And we see the outcome. So this is the normal move that controls the e5 square and improves the bishop position. That's the way of thinking as a strong player. Again, let's put the pawn on f3, and I want to make special emphasis on this move, on f4 move. Light square bishop has position and functions have to be improved. So f4 move limits the e5 square for black and prepares bishop g4. So that's when both bishops will be active. After f4 move, black played knight c5. They try to go to e4. Just make some active move, because since black does not have constructive plan. Bishop g4 check, bishop g4, knight e4 check, king d3, and f5. Now let's look at this position. And this position is very interesting too. That's what white wanted. White wanted black to play f5. Now again, as in a previous game, e7 pawn is a weak, and e6 is a weak square. So bishop f3, and now if knight goes back to c5, king retreats, and then white can break through with g4. And black will never be able to retake, because this bishop is going to be devastating on a file. So you just improve light square position. Bishop Kavalek played b5 here, and you see what his plan is. This is an active defense, which makes a lot of sense. His plan is this: if white takes on e4, then black takes back, and this is temporarily pawn sec, because after king takes e4, pawn takes c4. The last thing white wants here to let black's pieces out. Remember, we mentioned it before, and this is my thinking, and I believe that was Karpov's thinking as well. White has a space advantage. They don't want to give it up. They don't want to take knight on e4. So after b5, he continued the plan. He went g4. Now all of a sudden we see that after move g4, black is facing big problem. Let's say there is it's white's move in this position. White can play h takes g, and on h takes g, g takes f, and now once we have two files open, h and g files, with support of two bishops, black's king position may become very, very dangerous. And after g4 move, black has to act. So what happened here? Black played b takes c, rook takes c4, rook takes c4, b takes c, and knight c5 check. Now this is now comes very interesting decision by white. So far the strategy was the space, pressure on king's side, and now it all completely changes. Now this, I'm going to tell you now, the concrete approach to this position. Complete approach to the Karpov just played bishop takes c5. There goes his pride, two bishops, and there goes his pride, the pressure on king's side. All this is off in exchange for, after knight c6, rook takes c5, in exchange for one additional plan, h6. Now after h6, black realizes that they have a very, very serious problem. They have very serious problem. What to do with the bishop? Bishop has to move, and bishop moved to the square where he's practically dead. Player of Grandmaster caliber will never make this move if he had a choice of making any other. And this is concrete approach to the position. This is a little more complicated than the general plan. After h6, let's look at other moves by black. Well, let's see bishop h8. After bishop h8, what happens? White, I believe, can make two different moves. Move I like is number one, is g5, and after which the black's h8 bishop will never move again in this game. It still would have been a good bishop in the middle game, because just by standing on h8 it would be good. But when there's only two pieces on the board from each side, and one of them doesn't move, it's like a handicap. So now white goes rook b1, penetrates with rook on b7, and practically it's over. The other way of playing this position after bishop h8 can be g takes f, g takes f, and go pick up the f pawn, but then the bishop can come to f6. I consider it not as strong. However, rook b1 also gives white significant advantage. But the best move, all of these things can be played, but g5 I consider the best, and I think after g5, black is totally lost. All right, let's move on to with bishop f8. After bishop f8, white goes king c3. Now again, I think what I would have done in this position, I would have gone g5 myself, and I would have let him go rook a5, and maybe go then rook a1 b1 and try to win this position, even if not immediate g5. So maybe just play rook h2 to prepare against rook a5 threat, but then again threatening rook a3 check, maybe now king d4, which is also better for white. But I think the move made by Karpov was most precise. He went king c3, because in case black plays rook a5, king b3 immediately sends a5 rook back. So he prevents any kind of counterplay or any kind of activity by the black. So after king c3, black plays f takes g, because now I think white has deadly positional threat. The deadly positional threat is g5, as I said, and white has an extra piece. White has an extra bishop. f8 bishop is dead to the rest of the game. Rook b1 comes, rook b8, and black is not going to be able to hold too much longer. Well, something like this would be rook b1, and now if this position occurred and black is all defended all, now you may go bishop d1. You see how you can bishop a4 and bishop d7 and bishop e6, totally stalemating black. So obviously this is not something black can allow, and after king c3 move, black played f takes g, bishop takes g4, and now white has another threat to play bishop e6 and send black's king to the absolute isolated position. So black played king f7, bishop e6 check, and king f6. Well, now black's king is out, black's king is active, but the problem is h7 pawn. So black cannot prevent everything. So h7 pawn holds, and so is the game. Rook c7, bishop takes h7, pawn went to e6, bishop g8. Now this is already not as significant. Bishop e takes d. Now he just went h7, bishop g7, bishop takes d5, bishop h8. This is already totally lost. King d3, king f5, king e3, rook e7, king f3, and after a5, a4, bishop has to stand on h8 to stop h-pawn from moving. Rook c7, bishop check, and after king f6, rook h6. And on rook g7, king g4. You see the pitiful position that black has. They have only one move that does not lose instantly, is king f7. And after king g5, they don't have any moves that prevents them from losing further material, and they just resigned in this position. They resigned after king g4. That's a very consistent, very simple plan on where white has had big space advantage, and they transferred and they went on to change the plan, and they practically killed opponent's piece. And then they exchanged pieces, and they got dead dark square bishop for black. So that was concrete approach. But to play like this, of course, you have to have certain positional level, positional knowledge. And, well, Karpov is not lacking that, so that's why he was able to convert this game smoothly into winning. Now let's look at this game Karpov played against another very famous Grandmaster. At least he was at that time when he played Enrico Making. This game is very, very unique. Now you're going to see how simple it was for white to play, how effective it was, and how easy to play the game like this for player of mediocre level. e4, c5. Again, we are not gonna analyze in details the opening part. d4, c takes d, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6. It's a Najdorf variation of Sicilian. Bishop e2, e5, knight b3, bishop e6. It's all very well-known theory. f4, queen c7, a4, knight c6, and f5. Now, in this position, black played bishop takes b3 and c takes b. Now, let's talk this position. This is already a bad position for black. I think it's real bad, and let's talk why. The weakness on d5 square is very significant. Of course, knight does not go to d5 right away, but this weakness is very critical, and also critical the bad bishop on f8. So white has to find constructive plan to mount some minor piece on d5 square and keep it there. That's why we don't want to go knight d5, because after black plays knight d5, queen is not the piece to stand on d5, and so is a pawn. You have to end up on d5 square with a minor piece. So black played here queen b6, and they are trying to play knight d4, put pressure on b3 pawn, and also try to stop white from the castling. Bishop g5, very consistent and very correct move. Now, what would you think about? Now, of course, you can start thinking, wait a minute, I can't castle, I can't move. Now, how do I develop my pieces? The way you should look at it is this. Black, the position is not really open. Position is kind of closed. So there is a one good minor piece black has, is knight on f6, that first of all attacks pawn on e4, and secondly controls the critical d5 square, as we said. Bishop g5 is the one and only logical move in this position. Bishop e7, and of course bishop takes f6, and bishop takes f6. White got the d5 square, which is permanently theirs. Knight to d5, queen a5 check. Well, and this is, as I said, it's a matter of taste. Some people would move the king and try to play bishop c4 and try to push pawns on a king side. But Karpov is very happy with the endgame, where he has a dominating knight on d5. Now, is queen d2 the correct move? We don't know. I'm not saying it's the correct move, it's the only move. Well, the other move before knight d5, white could have played bishop c4, which is, I think, also a fine move. But he played knight d5 with the intention of going to endgame. Queen d2, queen takes d2, and king takes d2. Can we tell now that black has practically extra pawn and white has bad pawn structure? Absolutely not. Because this is not, white has, it's very important to notice, white does have 3 pawns on a queen side. It's not like some others can tell, some people can tell, it's only 2 pawns because it's double pawn. No. White can push b4, b5, and after exchanging, having another pawn on b2. So it is 3 pawns. So the important thing here, the importance of knight on d5, dominating piece, makes black's position difficult. So let's see what happened. But a lot of people may say, you may think like this too. So what happened in this game is bishop g5 check, king d3, and now black castles. Well, black may think, if I exchange knights, then it will be dark square bishops, opposite square bishops, and it's going to be a draw. No, this is far from a draw. As we saw in one of the examples, just the game before this, Karpov versus Kavalek, opposite color bishops, when one is extremely active and the other bishop is dead, is far from being drawish. So black castled. Black has to castle because there is a threat of knight c7 check. White goes h4, and after bishop d8, white goes rook a to c1. Now, here is the way we think. What does white want? Remember that knight on d5 is not going to win the game by itself. You have to create play. You have to create activity that will be used, where you can use this knight's dominating position. Now, g4 is the wrong move. This is the correct plan and incorrect execution, g4. g4 is that what the Karpov wants to do, and to go g5. But on g4, we said that if black exchanges knights, it's still not a draw, but of course it's better for white if they can stop black from doing it. So the move Karpov made in this position, before he went g4, he went rook a to c1. And now black cannot go knight e7, because white will simply take on e7 and go rook c7. See, now let's talk about this position and how you can come to this conclusion. Now let me, I'm putting myself in a position of player rated 1500 or maybe 1400, and suppose I have this position. How should I think? Okay, I have this advantage. I have a beautiful knight, and he wants to exchange my knight. What do I do? One possible scenario, one possible way of thinking is king to, when he puts knight on e7 and he exchanges my knight, let me put at least, after king e3, knight e7, at least put the bishop on strong position. And this makes a lot of sense. Now if black takes on d5, white plays bishop takes d5, and white still has considerable advantage, which is okay, good way of thinking. Now I would put another thought in consideration. What if I stop him from playing knight e7 at all completely? Rook c1 does it. How can I stop him? Can I go f6? No, I'm just giving him a pawn. So how else can I stop him? C file is open, and knight e7 is not possible, as we just mentioned. So rook ac1, that's how you can find the best move. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to find the rook ac1 move. It's relatively simple. You have to give logical thinking a chance. That's where grandmasters are better than other players, because they are very consistent and very well disciplined with the way they think. Now, in this game, there was no concrete approach to position, no calculations, no combination. It's very positional, but positional in the way that is very simply accessible thinking for any level of player. Rook a to c1 is by far the best move. Now black goes a5. They try to exchange knights, maybe through knight b4, and stop rook c7 that way. Now white goes king d2. And here, on knight b4, possibly they want to take knight on b4 and go bishop c4, or maybe bishop c4 right away. So anyway, black plays rook b8, white goes g4. Now what does white want? They want to go g5, and again, I'm not trying to mate you. We looked at the game against Kavalik. He wants to take under control every square on king's side and in the center. g4, black goes knight b4. White goes bishop c4, and again he's placing bishop on d5. Knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. Now we got opposite color bishops, but with the pressure for white on all over the board. They have the c file, they have space advantage on king side, and they have dominating minor piece. So this is far from being a draw, just as far as for white to be winning. White is not winning. White has considerable advantage, but is not winning. Again, now black plays g5. And here we have to make a decision as white. This is very interesting move, g5. And white has to come white has to make a choice here. Black is threatening g takes h, simply take the pawn. So what does white want? If they go h5, then you're closing, completely killing the king side play on for both sides. Then black is going to go king g7, king f6, and e7, bring the king out over, and also go bishop b6. And you see, white still has an advantage, but it's not as easy to win, because this practically they have to do everything on queen side. But when you have space advantage and you have dominating pieces, you cannot keep position too closed. So white needs to open it. How to open it? Let's think now. I want to open, suppose I'm a weaker player, I know I have to open it, I have enough knowledge for it. How would I do that? Now, h takes g is opening, is it? No, it's not. H takes g. First of all, it's losing a rook. Bishop takes c1. But for a minute, let's ignore this rook. Suppose rook wasn't hanging. Is this opening position? No, it's not opening the position because black is going to exchange rooks on c-file and king side is still locked. So in principle, it's a wrong decision. So then, if we don't do that, there is only one way to play this position. And only way to play is to take an en passant. That's what happened. F takes g. Black plays h takes g, and white goes king d3 to improve position, improving king position. Now what white wants is to continue playing on king side and open more files, creating more targets. This is what you see, what you can say flexible pawn structure and not frozen pawn structure. Frozen pawn structure I would call something like this. If we had this, it's a frozen pawn structure, but this is flexible, so there is still a chance to open position on a king side. King d3, king g7, and now white goes h5. White goes h5, and the black is practically lost here. Black went bishop b6. Now, question. Why can't black close the position anyway? Well, because now, after white goes h6 check, you see the king moves somewhere, king h7, because on king g6 you may go h7 even. King h7, now white can go rook to f1, attack the f6 pawn, f7 pawn, and after f6 maybe go bishop e6, putting bishop on f5. And h pawn may become very dangerous. And bishop on f5 may be even stronger than bishop on d5 because it stops black's rook's access to the c file. And after white goes rook c1, black is totally paralyzed and lost. So in this position, after h5, black played bishop b6. And now, you are not Karpov, and you are not Grandmaster, and you are not a world-class player. In this position, what would you do? How would you think about this position? Obviously, in this position, and in any position in chess in general, first thing you do, how do I improve position of my pieces? How do I make progress? This is the number one basic question in any position in chess. In order to improve, you don't go with a random selection of moves, because that's what computers do. They take randomly several million moves and they come to conclusion, they pick one. So here, what we do, we don't have this ability. We analyze logically this position. Why? We want to get pressure. We want to penetrate on the king side. Penetrate because we cannot penetrate on the c file. We have to infiltrate black's position. And for that, rook h3, and we want to play rook h1. We want to get in on h file. After rook h3, bishop c5, as you see, black completely blocked the c file. And now we're playing rook f1. Very strong move. So let's see why. If we go rook h1, black plays rook h8, and they are ready for the opening of h file. You play rook f1. Now, I want to stop him from going rook h8. I want to go rook f1. Now f7 will be hanging. And after rook f1, black must go f6, because that's the only way they can put their rook on h8. But after f6, pawn takes pawn. King takes. And now rook f to h1. White is completely in charge of h-file. And after rook f to h1, black's position is totally lost. Now, you see, we have an attack on black's king. We have one rook on h3, rook on h1, and bishop on d5. It's a 3 pieces versus bare king with 0 pieces on black's part to defend. Opposite color bishops, as we know, make the defense even more difficult, if it's not impossible. So the game is over. Remember, when you have positional advantage with dominating piece, make sure your opponent does not succeed blocking position. That's the danger. That's the danger of blocking position, because then you may not take full-scale advantage of your dominating piece. And we are talking about, in this case, about bishop on d5. So what happened next is, after rook f to h1, rook b to e8, the rest is not as important. Rook h7, you see that there is a white's pieces are coming and black is totally helpless. King g5, white goes king e2, because they want to go king f3 and creating mating net. King e2, king f4, white goes rook 1 to h3, bishop d4, and next move is a rook g7, sealing black's king's position, and rook f3 mate next move. This is already concrete approach. Any positional, very, very strong positional game, when you play, it ends with some concrete approach, when it's like a cashing in time, finalizing and converting the game into a total win. And after rook g7, black obviously resigns, since rook f3 is a mate next move. So this is very instructive game. So we looked at already at games that are strictly positional, with next to 0 calculations involved. But in today's chess, once you play a game, it's very difficult to find those that are strictly positional and very positional, and there is no tactics involved. Now let's look at the good positional games with the tactical shots and concrete approach in use. Well, this is the game that played by Viktor Korchnoi, and I worked with him for a couple of years on certain world championship matches, match against Karpov. And as you see, I worked against Karpov, and I worked for Karpov too, at different times. Not at the same time, by the way, that's not a good idea to do. Okay, d4, d5, c4, dc. Again, we're going to go through quickly through the opening part. Knight f6, e3, bishop g4, bishop takes c4, e6. It's a well-known position of Queen's Gambit decline. Queen's Gambit accepted. h3, bishop h5, knight c3, knight bd7, castle, and bishop e7. Bishop e7 is known as a weak move. The more active continuation is bishop d6, but we are not going to discuss that part. We said e4, knight b6, bishop e2, castle, bishop e3, bishop g6, and bishop d3. Let's talk about this position. White has not slight, maybe considerable space advantage. Black has no weaknesses. White has to make progress. How to make progress? After bishop d3, knight f2 d7, bishop, well, white wanted to play knight e5 and possibly f4, making progress. Black is playing knight f2 d7. So far, move by move, all white does is improves their position of their pieces. Bishop f4, this is normal move. There's nothing special. Bishop d6. And here we have to use the concrete approach to position. What is the correct move in this position? On some level, and some people may think that move e5 here is a big positional mistake. Why? Because instead of exchanging dark square bishop, white puts pawn on dark squares, exchanging light square bishops and getting themselves a bad bishop. This is the way of thinking for players, I mean, relatively lower level. But there are two sides to e5 move. Now we're going to look at the side, the different side of e5 move. That's the move that was made by Korchnoi, and he is far from being a weak player. After e5, now let's see what happens. We know white has, we see it, white has some space advantage. When you have space advantage, number one rule, the number one, when you have space advantage, try to keep more pieces on the board, because space advantage or space disadvantage makes you uncomfortable in maneuvering. That's I'm talking for black now. And the same way, when you have disadvantage, try to exchange as many pieces as possible. After e5, bishop went to e7. Actually black played bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, and bishop went back to e7. Now let's talk about it. Is this position better for white? Let's compare this given position to this position. Now, do we rather have bishops on board or off the board? A lot of players may say, I say maybe even majority of the average players will say, oh, it's better for white with bishops off the board, but it's not so. Bishop on f4, even though white has pawns on d4 and e5, is a better bishop than e7 bishop, because here are the advantages of white's position. White has space advantage, and black has very big difficulties maneuvering. e7 bishop takes square away for the queen. For example, black wants to play queen e7 and bring the rooks over and try to do some counterplay, build some counterplay. But bishop on e7 makes it difficult. Also, what does bishop on e7 do? Can it go anywhere? No. So right now, bishop on e7 is practically burdened. White has, as you see, white's pawns in the center, they are aimed towards the king side. White wants to conduct play on a king side. If we start attack on the king side for white, bishop on f4, dark square bishop will be very helpful. So that's another side of the story of comparing bishop f4 to bishop e7. In this position, white simply has space advantage and black has difficulties maneuvering. So let's go on, and after queen takes d3, bishop e7, rook a to d1, it's just general move putting rooks in the center, rook e8. Now white played queen e4. This is a good move. Queen e4, attacking b7 pawn, and after c6, Black has no weaknesses, but black has no plan, and black has no space.
This is Grandmaster Damian Lemos here for onlinechesslessons.net. First of all, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to receive more free chess videos from us, you can just click the subscribe button below. I would also highly recommend signing up for my free mail course, the 10 Grandmaster Secrets to Dominate Chess. During this exclusive course from onlinechesslessons.net, I'll share with you my own Grandmaster shortcuts to effective attacking, defending, and growth hacks to improving your chess without complicated books or memorization. So sign up by clicking the sidebar on the right, and I know you won't be disappointed. Once more, this is Damian for onlinechesslessons.net, and I'll see you in my videos. Thank you.